Hello, I'm Stephen Hammond with Christian Values Investing, and today I have with me Grayson Shaw, an investment advisor rep with the firm. And today, me and Grayson are going to be talking about the benefits of investing in a 529 plan versus something like a Coverdell IRA, even versus a UGMA or UTMA. And we're going to discuss the pros and cons and what would be best for you. Can you just give us kind of a brief description, Grayson, maybe between a Coverdell IRA and a 529 plan?
Sure. So they're both educational investment plans. And the difference between the Coverdell and the 529 is contribution limits. So with the Coverdell, you can only put in about $2,000 per year into it. With the 529, they have very high contribution limits. Some states it's over $300,000. And basically what used to be different about the Coverdell was you were able to use it for K through 12 education. So like if you had private school expenses that you wanted to use, you could pull funds from the Coverdell. However, that's been updated recently, so you can use 529 plans for K through 12 education as well. And so you don't have to have a minimum investment requirement for a 529. You don't have to have one for a Coverdell either. And now you can basically do the same thing with the 529 as you could with the Coverdell with the K through 12 education. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense anymore to go with the Coverdell. However, both of them are pretty good plans in that you can invest and then you can take out the proceeds without having to pay taxes on them as long as they are education expenses.
Grayson, let's talk about how that compares to a UGMA or UTMA. You know, for so many years, what was offered through various firms I worked with was UGMAs, but there's now UTMAs that will actually allow you to put more than just financial assets into the account. It can be real estate, it can be precious metals, anything like that. But let's talk about gifting to a UTMA versus a 529 plan. Grayson, give us kind of some of the pros and cons of that, because I know that in a UTMA, if the student or the beneficiary wasn't really planning on going to school, there's a possibility at 21 years old in the state of Georgia, they could actually decide they want to go buy a new Ferrari with the money. So tell us a little bit about the pros and cons versus a 529 versus a UTMA.
Well, if it's a matter of control for you and you want to make sure that the money goes towards what you want it to go towards, sometimes a 529 or a Coverdell might be the right thing to do. Like if you don't want your kid to grow up and use that money to buy a motorcycle and join a commune, that's probably going to be your best option. Because with the UTMA, that would be what they'd be able to do. Once they turn 18 or 21 or however you set that up to work, they'll be able to have that money and have access to it, and it'll be theirs. So if that grows up to be $50,000, they can use it to start their business, which could be a good thing. They can use it to put a down payment on a house. They can use it for college if they want to. Really, the options are limitless with it. They can use that money for practically anything that they want, and they don't have to worry about the restrictions of educational or qualified educational expenses like you would with a 529 or a Coverdell.
So basically what you're trying to say is that the UTMA will allow for the person to use the money for more things than just education, and a 529 is really designed for education. Now, let's say, Grayson, that you're funding a 529 plan and you have your first child, they go off to school, and they don't use up all the money in the 529 plan. What can you do with the excess funding that's in the 529 plan?
There are a couple of options. Number one, you can roll it over into a Roth IRA for your child. You've just got to make sure it's not a rollover IRA. It's got to be a Roth. That's specifically what the law is required for that. Now, you can roll over up to $35,000 lifetime into a Roth, and that also has to make sure it follows the rules for contributions to that. So you can't do more than $7,000 per year. And what you also can do is you can you can transfer that over to another child, or you can hold it for a grandchild, or you can even use it for yourself. But basically, you just have to remember that if you want to have the benefits of the tax-free withdrawals on the growth, you have to make sure that you use it for a qualified educational expense.
Grayson, let's talk about the flexibility in with investments versus a 529 plan versus a UTMA. Can you kind of go into a little bit of detail? I know, like with the UTMA, you're pretty much limitless. You can buy, any stock, bonds, ETFs, that type stuff. But with a 529 plan, it's pretty much, I believe, left up to what's ever in the plan. Can you go into that detail a little bit with that?
Yeah, so it would be kind of like what you have with a 401k. You'd have a menu of options. Now, if you've got that UTMA, you might be able to buy some Bitcoin for your son or daughter, which could be good. And then you'll also open that up to be able to be managed by somebody like us and have the opportunity to make greater returns. Now, it's always going to be a little bit of a drawback if you have a limitation on what you can invest in, so that is definitely something to take into consideration. And so based on all that, I know you've got a couple of kids and you've got some experience doing this with them and also with other people that you've dealt with in the past. Would you recommend for people to go with a 529 or a UTMA or maybe a combination of both? What are your thoughts on that?
It's going to really depend on the objective of the person gifting the money. So if they want their child to go to, or their beneficiary to go to college, a 529 plan would be the best option. If you're just wanting to put money aside for them and you're wanting so they can have some money to put down on a down payment of the house, or try to add on to maybe a house that they already have, maybe a UTMA would be the best option. A Coverdell IRA is good for those who don't have a lot of money they can put in per year. It will allow up to $2,000 a year in contributions to a Coverdell IRA. If you're just starting out, if money is tight, maybe that would be an option for you. But as you progress, and if you have more money, you should really take a look at investing in a 529 plan if your objective is sending your kids to college. Grayson, is there any other tips that you think our listeners would be interested in?
Just a couple of extra things about the 529 plans. For one, you can, in some states, not all, you can deduct 529 contributions from your taxes. Like in Georgia, you're able to do that. Also, you can use them for non-college related expenses. You can use it for Wi-Fi or for computer use if it has to do with education. You can use it for some apprenticeship programs, and you can also use it for trade school. You just have to remember that the average cost of college is about $153,000, and pretty much the most expensive vocational degree you're going to get is going to be about $15,000. So that's something to take into consideration when you're thinking about a 529 versus a UTMA. And this last thing is going to be for people that might be a little bit higher income. You can do what's called super funding into a 529 plan, where you can go ahead and contribute the gift tax, the maximum gift tax that you can give up to 5 years. So if that's $19,000 in 2025, you could go ahead and contribute that all up front and do about $85,000 to start with in that 529 plan, which would give you the benefit of that being able to compound instead of having to basically dollar cost average it over the years. Well, that wraps it up between the discussion on UTMAs and 529 plans. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. We'd be happy to get back with you. And make sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications, and follow us for more investment tips.
Until next time, may God richly bless you.